And I guess that's right. My, I suppose, role in the panel is to give a perspective from a development partner. How, for example, we are working on resilience in Ethiopia, how we've been looking at our programming. The top priority for Irish Aid, which is the Government of Ireland's official development assistance programme, is to build resilience to stresses and shocks and to reduce hunger and vulnerability. So from very much a very high-level policy level, vulnerability, resilience, shocks, stresses, etc. is in our statements. And I suppose over the last couple of days we've heard a lot of definitions of resilience. We've heard a lot of what to do to build resilience. And so for we then as a development partner, we have to think, well, what can we do? What can our contribution be? I think we're all, we have a certain amount of resources, you can't do everything, so you have to really focus on where do you think your added value is, speak to your colleagues, speak to a government, speak to citizens around your experience, the lessons learned over many years, and see where you should focus your effort. So my three really messages this afternoon is around social protection mechanisms to ensure food insecure rural people have access to social transfers. The second one is on support to climate-smart agriculture and livelihoods, and particularly for women, and also to keep a focus on improving nutrition. So on the social protection side, there's been a good bit of discussion over the last 3 days on the PSNP, the Productive Safety Nets Programme, and I guess we would see it as the bedrock, if you like, for building resilience. You can build community assets, you reduce vulnerability, but also importantly, you're providing a platform from which people can then benefit and participate in economic growth and transformation. Now, I won't go into all the benefits of the PSNP. IFPRI has been doing impact assessments, but needless to say, there's been clear evidence on its impact on food security, particularly in the highlands, and also on families' ability to spend money on non-food items also, again, an indicator of having more resources. I think the PSNP we should also talk about is a model for effectiveness of aid. So at the moment we've got 10 development partners supporting the PSNP. We have one budget, we've got one work plan as such, one report, one coordination structure, and it's all under the leadership and ownership of the government of Ethiopia. So I think in the past we would have been looking at much more fragmented donor support or development partner support to resilience. So this kind of pulling together around the Paris Declaration principles has been, I'd say, quite effective also. As we look ahead for the PSNP this year, we and the other partners have been working together with government on addressing some of the lessons over the years. And one is how do we support a transition to a social protection system? Because in many ways the PSNP has been like a big project. So how do we take it towards a system approach that is fit for purpose for a country that's moving rapidly towards middle income status? So what this means is having one integrated system and also working with government on the financing of the system. So development partner financing, but equally domestic financing from government's own resources. As we look forward, there's a much more an increased emphasis on graduation. So graduating from the programme by supporting crop and livestock, off-farm income generation and employment. Also, we're looking at the value of the transfer and increasing the value of the transfer. And the reason we're looking at increasing the value of the transfer is to have a greater impact on nutrition. I think when the PSNP was initially developed, it was very much a food security program without any indicators around nutrition or any kind of tracking of nutrition. And I think there's been, and you've heard it today in many of the sessions, about the centrality, if you like, of nutrition when you look at resilience. And finally, we want to look at the continuum of response. So to allow the program to scale up if there's a drought or another shock very quickly. And the way to do that is to decentralize decision-making down to lower levels of government. So they know what's going on, they can respond, they can act quickly. But we know, social protection is, as I say, the floor as such to give communities the ability to invest more in their livelihoods and resilience. But when we were developing our program here, we were saying, well, we need to invest much more in livelihood systems, on responding to climate change, etc. So some of the things which came out of the analysis was really around supporting economic empowerment of poor farmers, particularly women, through strengthening climate-smart value chains. And again, this is in order for farmers to build assets and to diversify risk. needs to look at the supply of biomass, so looking at reforestation, looking at woodlots at the household level, but then equally looking at, well, how biomass is used, so looking at fuel-efficient stoves, etc. Also encouraging learning, and learning between different regions, but also learning between different NGOs, etc., who are working on resilience programs. And one area which I think there's a huge amount of experience in Ethiopia is around seed systems and community seed systems and viable value chains. Investing in research into climate resilient crops and improved research into use data. I think there's been fantastic emphasis on research, but actually getting the research used in the field is something which we'd like to continue to focus on. And finally, on this issue around climate-smart agriculture, as most of our partners all work in areas which are drought, are prone to droughts, so we ask our partners to include in their risk analysis the chances of a crisis and to make provision within that so they can respond should they need to. Every year, 2 million children are born in Ethiopia. And if we invest together in proven affordable nutrition interventions for these children, they will grow up into women and men who will be more productive, healthier, put less demand on the health system, and contribute to economic growth. Better nourished girls grow taller, learn more easily, marry later, have fewer children, experience less risk in pregnancy and childbirth, and are more likely to have a child who is well nourished, and thus breaking that intergenerational cycle of poor nutrition and vulnerability. I think when you look at the evidence on nutrition, it is a no-brainer. It's the one to invest on if you want to support resilience. So in practical terms, this means supporting the health extension workers in the country, looking at micronutrient supplementation, breastfeeding, dietary diversity, complementary feeding, etc. And equally ensure there's a learning component in that, so that the learning can come into practice, etc. So I guess, as for an organisation like Irish Aid, we have to look at the whole resilience agenda, but then really think, well, what can you do, or what can you maybe make a contribution? So for us, it was looking at social protection, it was looking at climate-smart livelihoods, and looking at better nutrition. But while very interesting on their own right, I think it's the connections between those which are the most interesting. So when I talk to my colleagues in the embassy, it's okay, are you delivering on what you said you would do, but more importantly, what's the connections and how are you delivering on those connections across? So some of these implications have been, have a results framework which kind of captures those linkages, have team structures which work across these different areas, and also look at the funding modalities. So you can do long-term funding, but equally humanitarian funding. Thank you very much, Minister.